Good afternoon. My name is Amber Peterson, and I am LitWorld's Director of Program Innovation. Thank you for tuning in today as we explore activities that can help us stay positive and connected. LitWorld is a nonprofit that partners with organizations around the world to deliver literacy-based programs that focus on empowerment and social-emotional development. Our Virtual LitClub program explores some of our favorite LitClub-inspired activities that everyone can do from home. Go to litworld.org to sign up for the Virtual LitClub, or join our Virtual LitClub group on Facebook, or go to YouTube to see all of our weekly prompts and activities. As this round of our Virtual LitClub experience comes to a close, today's activity is fittingly about hope, the last of LitWorld's signature 7 strengths. We define hope as thinking optimistically and believing that today's efforts will produce good things in the future for yourself and for the world. Despite the many challenges we face as a global community right now, there are so many reasons to be hopeful. Positive things are happening everywhere around the world as we speak because people like you and me are making them happen. All of us, every single one of us, can be an agent of change for good in the world. We just have to make the choice to be one. In honor of that truth, for today's activity, we will be creating community action ideas. Community action ideas are just that, us thinking about ways that we can take action in our communities for the better. Change, as they say, starts at home, so what are we going to do? We can start this project the way that we often start our projects, with a brainstorm. First, define your community. There are so many different ways to think about community. Your community could be your city or your neighborhood, your town or your country. It could be your family, your friends, the people who are closest and mean the most to you. It could be a particular demographic that you identify with, so your race or your religion or a particular interest group. For the purpose of this activity, zoom in on one of those communities. You can repeat this process with as many communities as you like, but you might discover that because we're all so intersectional, meaning that we all have so many different overlapping identities, a community action plan that works for one community might be relevant for another community as well. Hi, Melissa. Once you've chosen your community, think about what makes it strong and what gives it challenges. Here's a brainstorm that I did for my community. So the community that I chose was the place that I live, in Brooklyn, in New York. So some of the reasons that I think my community is strong is because it's passionate, it's caring, it's informed, mostly, it's intersectional, it's diverse, and it's very eager. I think people really want to see change here, positive change. Some of the struggles that my community faces are in some ways kind of the opposite sides of the things that make it strong. So even though it's a wonderful, caring community, it can also be very isolating. Because so many people are passionate, all that passion can sometimes lead to some confrontation, to some issues. Because it's so diverse, it means that people have so many different ideas about what makes people happy, what makes, a community strong. People don't always connect with each other. I think here, especially because we're in a very small spaces and we're living on top of each other, there's this idea that people should kind of mind their own business. So sometimes that leads to people not connecting in the ways that they could. Stress is a big issue that faces my community, especially right now with all the things that are happening in the world. And living in Brooklyn, housing equity is another big issue. Just being able to afford to live here sometimes is a struggle. So here's my brainstorm of the strengths and struggles that my community faces. Now that I've done that, I'm ready to actually brainstorm some ideas. I find it helpful to think about ideas from a self-community world perspective. it would be hard for any one person to tackle any of these challenges all alone. But if the community joined together, it might make it easier. And imagine what would happen if the whole world started to think differently and take action about these issues. Self-community world kind of be like a chain reaction, starting with you. And the you part is the one that you have the most control over. So look at your challenges and zoom in on one. Here I zoomed in on this idea that sometimes people can be very isolated in my community. And then you can start to brainstorm different ways that you can address the problem on your own as one person, as a community, and then from a macro global perspective. I see someone from Zambia watching. Hello. So here's my brainstorm that I did. First, I started thinking about the things that I personally could do to combat this isolation that happens in my community. I could join a community board or a garden or an organization in my community. I could support those organizations financially. I could reach out to and connect with my neighbors, just face-to-face, person-to-person. I could continue to patronize the local businesses, restaurants that exist around me, connecting with the owners, the people who live here and are supporting and building infrastructure in my community. I can also just be friendlier, smile and say hi and get to know people who live around me. Things that my community could do together. I started brainstorming over here. We have lots of events like block parties and things that bring us together, but they happen kind of like sporadically. If we did those more frequently, people might have more reasons to connect with each other. There also are a lot of ways that we can support those people who do need help in my community. And so there are lots of organizations that already exist out there that I could jump on, that I could support, and other ways that we can kind of connect and help those people who need struggles. As I'm thinking about both of these things here, I'm also thinking about things that already exist. So many people are already starting to do some of this work, so I don't have to do it all by myself. People are already taking action in so many different ways. Finally, I'm thinking about things that the world can do to kind of solve this issue of isolation. And part of it is really celebrating connection more, finding new ways of thinking about how we can connect with each other, making it okay to ask for that connection. And especially now, we're starting to think a little bit differently about what that connection looks like. It doesn't have to be face-to-face, person-to-person. It can be over the computer or other different types of ways. So reinventing and reinvesting in connection as a global community, I think, is something that we can start to do. So there's my brainstorm. Again, these are just ideas. If you want to take your ideas a step further, you might want to do some smart planning around them. Smart planning is one way to turn an idea into something actionable. And you might have seen smart plans before. Right? This is a smart plan. Smart plan is S, specific, so linked to one activity, thought, or idea. It's measurable, something that you can keep track of. It's actionable. There are clear actions or things that you can do, steps that you can take. It's realistic, so it's possible to achieve it. It's something that's not just, impossible. And finally, it's timely. So you're giving it a time span. You're giving it a frame of time that you are going to make this thing happen. So I took one of my ideas and kind of smart planned around it. I have this kind of format that I use to kind of get to my smart plan. So I will, what's my goal, by doing these specific actions, by what date I will complete them. So I will connect with my neighbors by joining my local community garden by the end of the month. So I have now a goal that will help me to turn this idea, this community action idea, into something that I'm actually going to do. So thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We would love to know what your community action ideas turn out to be. Hi from Nepal. Thank you for being here. Please share those ideas with us on your social media or by email. And don't forget to go to litworlds.org for more ideas and resources. Remember to stay safe and stay connected.